नजर न लग जाए किसी की राहों में, छुपा के रख लूं आ तुझे निगाहों में, तू खो न जाए ओ माय लव। नजर न लग जाए किसी की राहों में, छुपा के रख लूं आ तुझे निगाहों में, तू खो न जाए ओ माय लव।
Parliament, as it is commonly known, building the stairwell up around the clock tower there. So they're going to be doing major refurbishment works on what we all tend to call Big Ben. It's not called Big Ben, some of you probably know this. It's called, I imagine quite a few of you know what its official name actually is. It's the Elizabeth Tower, after our current Queen. It was renamed in 2012. Up until that time it was simply known as the Clock Tower. That was the invented name that the Victorians came up with. The bell inside there, now they named it something invented, and that was Big Ben. It's a 13.5-ton bell that chimes out on the hours, the numbers of hours on the hours. It actually is in E flat. It's meant to be in just E, the key E, or the note of E, but it isn't, because it's got a crack in it. And how did this occur? Well, the story of the bell is quite complex. The first time the bell arrived, they tested it out at the bottom of the tower, and they hit it with a hammer that was too heavy and with too hard a force, and the bell cracked. They had to smash it up, take it back to Whitechapel, where that bell foundry still remains. The one bell foundry, I think, remaining in London, one of the few in the country. It was recast there, brought back, and they thought, this time we're not going to test it, it should be fine. We're going to take it up, put it in the tower, and hit it with the same hammer with the same pressure. Or force, I should say. Not the most intelligent thing to do. Guess what happened? The bell cracked. They had it up in the tower already, and it took a team of 8 men to lift it up there. So they didn't really want to take it back down. So what they did is they got someone up there to see how badly it was cracked. They cut a hole in the top to check how far the crack had gone. It had not gone far enough for the bell not to work. They cut a hole in the actually they cut a hole in the bottom first, and they cut a hole in the top to stop the crack from going any further, and then they hit it with a slightly smaller hammer with less force, which was the more intelligent thing to do. And it rings out flat though, as I said, E flat. I think that's where I put my hand right on that one. They actually have the old hammer which they hit it with in the exhibition up there. You can't tell, I've been up at that exhibition, and I've had the honour of winding up the clock in there, yes. It's the size, it's about twice the size of my living room at home. It's quite big, the clock mechanism in there, but it has a series of pulleys on it for the bells. It's much like a grandfather clock, and it does have a pendulum as well. So Big Ben is, or I call it Big Ben, let's face it, we all call the whole thing Big Ben. Big Ben is like a giant grandfather clock. Probably the most detail I've done on Big Ben for many years. Anyway, we have the Houses of Parliament themselves, another 2 towers, the Central Tower in the middle, obviously, and the Victoria Tower behind, which gets its name from Queen Victoria, in whose reign the Houses of Parliament were built for government purposes, of course, but government were convening in the old palatial buildings here as well. It was Henry Tudor who gave them over to government. There was a fire in his time here back in 1512, and he handed the buildings over to government at that point. They were convening still before that time as well, while that was a palace. But back then, I think they used to convene every 2 months. Parliament, maybe a bit more frequently than that, but not very often. We didn't have a constant parliament. Of course, the king had a lot of power back then. There was another fire in 1834, that's why we have the buildings we have there today. There's another government building on our right, ex-government I should say, and it actually has a wonderful debating chamber in it that I feel rivals the Commons personally. It's in the podium style. It's behind this massive, I forget what it's called, parade? I'm not sure. sorry I forgot the Roman term for it, but the concave in the middle here. You go through that central door. You won't be able to go in there unless for some reason it's open. There's a big debating hall directly behind that door through there. And it's where the old Greater London Council used to convene, hence County Hall. It's no longer that. We don't even have the Greater London Council. We have the Greater London Assembly, which have a little less power and aren't as big. The GLC were disbanded in 1986 because Margaret Thatcher didn't like them, basically. She didn't like them at all. They were political polar opposites. The GLC sitting over on the left, Margaret on the right. They never got on. That was Ken Livingstone, of course, was GLC. He became the Mayor of London for a couple of terms as well. Anyway, we have the London Eye, and I'm sure some of you have been up there. Excuse me. So you can go up there and look out over London. Get some great views out over London. 360-degree views once you get to the top, of course. Well, you get 360 views wherever you are. So I definitely recommend going up there. Are they giving out free sweets? Sorry, I've just been slightly distracted by that thing over there. Or that to sell. Or it may be freebies. Go by there and check it out. They give freebies out here sometimes. Anyway, I also talk about the buildings. And the London Eye, of course. Now, it's been turning since the year 2000. And it's been very, very popular, as you can imagine. Actually, I'm going to talk about the Eye on the way back. We'll get time. I must point out that over on our right, this is the best place to have a snog in London. Frozen yogurt. I'm talking about snog frozen yogurts. They're very nice. I had a snog here about 4 years ago now. It's the last snog I ever had as well. Good grief. Anyway, we're going underneath the Hungerford Railway Bridge, either side of which the Golden Jubilee footbridge is.
Golden Jubilee Bridge.
You can wave at them, it does stop them throwing things at us. On the right hand side you have the Royal Festival Hall, which opened the Festival of Britain back in 1951. Post-war celebration to lift the spirits of the nation after these difficult times in the Second World War. The Royal Festival Hall is a wonderful Art Deco complex based, the Festival Hall, on a cruise liner. The many levels supposed to resemble decks. And it's got these wonderful little levels. Some of them are booked out now and again for performances, and they have a lot of graduation ceremonies there this time of year. And I love it. It's a great concert hall. Go in the concert hall. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm a big fan of Art Deco, and I think it's the best concert hall in London. If you want to go see some music or a performance, you can't go wrong there. And they've had some really interesting stuff there. There on the right is the Queen Elizabeth Hall with the Purcell Room, the Hayward Art Gallery, which is a modern art gallery behind here, all undergoing renovation, due to reopen next year. I'm looking forward to seeing what they might do to the building, because it looks like their original plans aren't going ahead. So I think it's great. These sets of buildings are all part of our architectural history. A lot of people don't like that style of architecture that they're in. It's called brutalism. It was very popular during the 1960s and 70s, late 60s, early 70s. And this is the most infamous brutalist building we have on our right-hand side. The National Theatre. There it is. Prince Charles said he thought it looked like a nuclear power station. A lot of people think it's a car park, so I guess it's all to one's taste. I don't mind it at all. I think, of course, I'm sure those of you who've been in there will agree that the theatres are pretty amazing. Some of the best theatres in London. There are 3 in there: the Olivier, Dorfman and Littleton theatres, where they put on some great shows. I'm guilty of not going there for about 4 years now, but when I last went in there, the production I saw was of a very, very high calibre and pretty darned good. and tickets are relatively affordable there, especially when you compare them to the insanity of West End prices. On the right hand side we have London Studios, the white buildings. This is where ITV, if you can't see their logo, it's on the top of the front building there. ITV film programmes like This Morning, Loose Women, Take Me Out, and The Deck Saturday Night Takeaway. That's still going on. Take Me Out, probably not going on anymore. But anyway, things that ITV do put on are filmed there. I'm not too up to date on the ITV's programming, unfortunately. But you can see the studios for this morning. Of course, we're 5 minutes out of being on air. Finished at 12. Did they go to 12:30? Are they still in there? I don't know. Not too hot on daytime television, obviously. We might be on air. I don't know. We're often in the background going by if they're filming this morning, especially. Well, the OXO building over there on the right hand side, the red brick building, the old meat cold storage warehouse for the Leipzig Meat Extraction Company, who unsurprisingly produced the OXO stock cube. They built the tower on top of their warehouse at a point in time when skyline advertising was against the law in London. It was in fact illegal to advertise products on the skyline, and neon lighting was definitely out of the question. So the OXO company built that tower nonetheless, but said they were building an ornate tower displaying a series of random geometrical shapes made out of red stained glass windows. And they lit a big light behind them at night, and they lit up bright red. Nothing to do with their product at all. Well, it's all water under the bridge now, that's all just there. It's still free advertising, let's face it, but it's decorative nowadays in a way, and they do light it with neon. Not the Leipzig Meat Extraction Company, the owners of the complex. I'm not sure who owns that. Oh, it's Coin Street Partnership, sorry, who own it. Community scheme in the local area. Anyway, we have a new building being built on the right. It is number 1 Blackfriars, or the Boomerang, or Baby Bump, or whatever you want to call it. There we go, almost finished. Getting there. Of course, affordable housing in there. On the left hand side we have St Paul's Cathedral, 365 feet high, 1 foot for every day in the year, and one of the most beautiful buildings in the country, one of the largest domed cathedrals in the world, and you have to visit there if you're visiting London. You don't have to, but I'd recommend it, even if you're just going to wander around the outside. I'd recommend, of course, going inside, going to the top to the Golden Gallery. It is 530 steps to the top, but it does provide wonderful views out in the open air. And the place where it's situated is quite interesting, because it's the old part of London. Heading underneath Blackfriars Road Bridge. Next up, Blackfriars Railway Station, spanning the old Alexandria Railway Bridge. And here are some red columns crossing the river. Ah, red columns. What are these mysterious red columns doing? Well, I'm not going to tell you right now, but I may tell you of a return. Ahead of us is the Millennium Bridge. The Millennium Bridge opened in the year 2000 and closed in the year 2000. It was open for a day and a half. It wobbled. Yes, we call this the wobbly bridge to this day, despite the fact that, let's face it, not many people witnessed the wobble, because not many people got to cross it when it wobbled. They de-wobbled it over a year and a half period, and it was reopened in 2012, sans the wobble, so you can go over it without worrying about getting motion sickness, basically. It's a natural occurrence in suspension bridges that they wobble. If you've been to the Clifton suspension bridge, it does the same. Battersea, no, have I got the wrong bridge? What is it? Is it Albert or Battersea? I always get them mixed up. I'm pretty sure it's Albert Bridge, the suspension bridge by Battersea Park, that wobbles. Only if you have like a group of soldiers walking across it. because they walk in time. It's called synchronatic dissonance. It's a natural occurrence. Suspension bridges. Anyway, that's enough about that. On the left, St. Paul's. A waving person on the bridge. Hello, waving person. All persons, plurals. Ah, they're all waving now. It's weird, isn't it? You wave to someone, you know. Oh, they want the horn. Yeah, there you go. Nice one. That's awesome. Anyway, Tate Modern, we'll talk about that on the way back, shall we, with St. Paul's. A big ex-power station, now modern art gallery. There's the Globe on the right. I'm guilty of not going to the Globe last year. I'm going there every year. £5 for tickets at their cheapest, which is still pretty cheap. 700 standing spaces in the middle of the open air bit. During this kind of unpredictable weather, maybe not the best time to buy open air tickets. They don't allow umbrellas, and if you get rained on, you have to deal with it. Probably with a poncho is the best way about it. But I definitely recommend it nonetheless. You can buy, of course, more expensive seats, which go up in price as you go up into the galleries. It still remains pretty affordable. You actually have to pay more for a cushion. You have to pay, I think, £1 or something for a cushion, because the seats are wooden. They keep it very traditional. That's why the tickets in the open air bit are the cheapest, because you have to stand. That's how the poor people would have done it once upon a time. And it was a very rowdy experience back in Shakespeare's day. It's not so rowdy anymore, but they do get involved with the crowd, the actors. It's quite fun. Not super involved, but they can get quite rowdy now and again. On the right, there's a set of steps coming down to the river next to this beautiful bridge, Art Deco. Of course, I like this one. And that set of steps is how you would have got down and across the river. This bridge wouldn't have been here. There wouldn't have been barely any bridges crossing the Thames. And you would have got across the Thames by boat. A wherry, to be specific. The wherryman, the waterman of the Thames, would have taken you up or down river or across river, wherever you felt like you needed to go. You would have shouted from a little platform, all those steps, oars, oars. And a waterman, a wherryman, would have come and picked you up, saying westward or eastward ho, and you would have told him which way you wanted to go, up or down river. Nowadays you have bridges and cars and things. It's not as interesting. On the right is the Anchor pub, dating back to 1750. There are in fact older pubs on this site, going all the way back to the 1400s. Very nice pub, that one. I've never eaten there, apart from the bar snacks, but I have had a drink or two there, and quite like the atmosphere. It can get quite busy. On the right hand side, we will be passing by the Golden Hind, a reconstruction of the original Golden Hind's galleon. Now this has been around the world, the reconstruction, with working masts and sails and doing it properly. No motors or anything. It went around the world twice. It was built in the 1970s. The original was kicking around in the 1570s. 1577 it went around the world. The original Golden Hind, captained by Francis Drake, who was the first Englishman to circumnavigate the globe, to go around the world. He didn't intend to circumnavigate the globe. He went out there to explore Spanish-held territories. By explore, we mean steal stuff. He stole quite a lot of stuff from the Spanish and Portuguese. Smash and grab raids, I believe, from the Spanish and Portuguese ports. He lost two of his fleet of 5. 2 were sent home early, and his one went around the world, the Golden Hind. He wasn't the original captain of that. The original captain of the Golden Hind was Thomas Doubting. He was accused of witchcraft, and I don't know what they did with him, but he stopped becoming captain. We're going to head underneath London Bridge. To the left, if you look, is the name of the bridge. So if you don't believe me that this is London Bridge, the writings on the wall. Literally. Oh, there you go. So that's London Bridge. It may not look as exciting as you thought it might, because there were once bridges here dating all the way back to Roman days. The Roman bridges, long gone. Anglo-Saxon bridges, long gone. Were there Viking bridges? We're not sure. But there was definitely a medieval bridge. 1209 that one opened and was pulled down in 1824. 600 years of bridge. We'll talk about that one on the way back, along with the Victorian one, and I might mention this one again. But if I don't, it's the 1970s version of the bridge. It's quite new. and rather functional. Lovely picture of a swan there on the Thames. You don't get many swans out on the Thames, but you do get the sun. Very brave to be out here. On the right we have the Shard, the big thing, the big pointy thing, 309.6 metres tall, and it's, you know, all about the money, as Jesse J once said. There are apartments at the top of there that are worth £40 million. There's a lot of money floating about inside there. They probably have a room where there's just money floating about just because they can. Start the crystal maze. Start the fans, please. On the right hand side, we have HMS Belfast, an 11,500 ton heavy battle cruiser. An 11,500 ton cruiser that was operational during the Second World War. It was the largest lightweight cruiser in the Second World War, and this fired the first shots over Juno and Gold beaches during the Normandy landings. Now, as far as I'm aware, it fired the first shots to instigate the landings, although there's another side to that story. I think another vessel accidentally fired its guns too early, but this one officially started the bombardment of the enemy defences past the beaches. It can fire 14 miles inland. It's now a museum. If you can't tell, you can wander about it, but the guns on the front, the 14-mile range guns, are still operational. They can fire rounds from them. They have fired blank rounds from them. I have never witnessed it. They can. They could also fire live rounds as well, that means. They're pointing at Croydon, those guns. Just to reassure you. It's alright. Keeping them in check. South, east. Anyway, or south, southeast, a bit of both in it. Anyway, on the right hand side, there's a swamp, that's City Hall. So this is the Greater London Assembly's residence, if you want to call it that. So the GLA, Greater London Assembly. So make sure you sit down on the top deck. There are people behind you who want to take photos as well. They don't want a photo. Thank you. Anyway, that's our mayor is Sadiq Khan at the moment. We've had only 2 other mayors for Greater London in the refounded in 2000. So 17 years we've had 3 mayors. First one, Kent Livingstone. I think he did 2 terms. Boris Johnson did 2 terms, and now it's Sadiq Khan in his first term as mayor, keeping, compared to the other 2, quite a nice low profile, which I'm not against. The other 2 are a bit too much celebrities nowadays in politics. They're not really doing their jobs right. On the left, we have the Tower of London, the big white tower in the middle there. We'll talk about that later, we've got more time. We're heading underneath Tower Bridge. Wave to the people on this bridge. It is recommended that you wave to people, because if we get a wave back, that's 5 years good luck. It's an old tradition. It's going back to when naval personnel went underneath this bridge. We just got a wave there. We pay him to wave at you, by the way. He made it look like he wasn't going to wave, but he would have all along. His name's Dave. He's very nice. I'm joking. That was a random person. The tradition goes back, as I was saying, to naval personnel going underneath this bridge and waving goodbye to their loved ones, members of the public, as they went out to sea. They would have been wished well on their way, and they could have been away for up to 5 years. Now this is the old port. If you look to your right, you'll see Butler's Wharf, and you can tell it's not a warehouse anymore. It's now apartment, and that's the Pont de la Tour at the bottom there. I've always wanted to go there. It's a French restaurant. I'm not saying it's cheap. The deli does good coffee, and it's normal deli prices. So if you want to feel a bit posh and have a posh coffee or a posh hot chocolate, go there. Pont de la Tour. It's where. Yes, that's where. Can you remember when Bill Clinton came over? Just about. I wasn't very politically aware back then, but Bill Clinton came over to the UK during Tony Blair's time, and they ate there. And Bill Clinton, I'm not sure when he was leaving, when he was coming or going, but they came across Tower Bridge, and Tower Bridge opened because it opens in the middle still, opened when Bill Clinton's cavalcade was going across, his entourage was going across the bridge, and he got separated. The skills opened. Now, there are two little huts, if you look, on this side of the bridge. There's another one that they use as well. But looking at the bridge, take your photos, it's a lovely view, but I'm going to carry on with this story. I'll soon be to our right-hand side once we've turned. See that box there? I've been in there. That's where they operate the opening of the bridge from. And who would it be? Would it be the CIA? Whoever it was who were escorting Bill Clinton were not happy. They got out of their automobiles and they went into the control house for the bridge. They said, you must lower the bridge, you must close it. This can't be doing. And they said, no, it doesn't matter. Right? So the Tower of London has had many uses. It's been a palace, fortress, prison, royal mint, observatory, zoo, gun arsenal, and store place for the crown jewels. If you look, there's some writing above the bricked up archway where it says entry to the Traitors' Gate, where they would take traitors through to be imprisoned for life or to await their executions. Not a good day if you were going through the Traitors' Gate. You wouldn't look forward to it. Many people went through there never to see, well, they would see the light of day when they were taken out to have their heads chopped off, obviously, but it wasn't good. It has had tons of uses. If I mentioned it was a zoo, which is a weird royal menagerie to be specific. The royal family used to get presents of animals all the time, all around the world, and they used to put them there. Before London Zoo was created to replace it, they moved all the animals from there to London Zoo because the public could come to the Tower of London and visit the animals. Just health and safety wasn't so strict then, and it wasn't really built to that purpose to be a zoo. And what happened? Firstly, apparently there was a leopard in there that used to steal people's belongings and tear them up. I think a lion mauled someone, and an orangutan, and this was the nail in the coffin for that, killed someone. An orangutan, very strong primate, picked up a cannonball in the grounds and threw it at someone and killed them. So they moved to the zoo. Bizarre, isn't it? Anyway, on the right, can you see that building occurs at the front? That's the walkie-talkie. The one that's going to disappear behind it is a cheese grater. The gherkin is out of view nowadays because there's a building being built in front of it called the Scaffold. You do get to glimpse it now and again. The NatWest Tower, if you can see it at the back there, that's the older of the skyscrapers out of these. They have little stories to them, but I don't have time to go into them. So I need to point out the old Tower of London, one of the old towers, or the column, I should say, the monument to our right. In between the two great buildings is a 202-foot high Doric column that commemorates the rebuilding of the City of London after the Great Fire of 1666. There it is, people are up there on the viewing gallery, looking out over London, as people would have done back in the day after the Great Fire, watching the city arising like a phoenix from the flames. More about the Great Fire of London later. Let's finish off about London Bridge. There was a medieval bridge here with 19 arches spanning the river. That's the one I mentioned that lasted for 600 years. It had shops and houses on it, a church, drawbridge, gatehouse, water mills. It was like a town upon a bridge, and it got very old. I would have loved to have seen it. You can see models of it in that church we passed, by the way, in front of the monument. There's a model of London Bridge in there. Or go to the Docklands Museum, part of the Museum of London group, and they have a free exhibition there with a bigger model in there, actually. Anyway, that one was pulled down. The houses were pulled down in the 1700s, the whole bridge pulled down in the 1800s. And then they built the Victorian one, which is still kicking about, just not in London, it's in Arizona. It was sold to an American because we didn't want it. It was seen. Now, you may notice there aren't that many pedestrians on this bridge, and if you look at any time, mostly goods traffic is going across this bridge. It's not a major thoroughfare into London, and not many people know where it is. That's the reason why you won't see many pedestrians on it. In fact, this is known as the Lonely Bridge, and has the lowest footfall of any bridge in central London. Another thing to just mark the fact that most of the people walking across it are lost. So if you do find yourself on the bridge, just be aware you probably don't know where you are. We're going to head underneath the Millennium Bridge, and the Tate Modern is to the left. Briefly, the Tate Modern, 325-foot high smokestack there, chimney, 4.2 million bricks in this structure, just in case you need to know that, and lots of other modern art inside there, some of which can be rubbish. Literally, it can be made out of domestic refuse, so it's rubbish. But I'm the nephew of a modern artist. I actually get on quite well with modern art. I'd recommend going there. I love it. I love to say modern. It's always some of it's always good for a laugh. Some of it goes over my head. Totally. Anyway, on the right, left, right, left, right. It's on the right. I had a battle sometimes in my head with my left and my right. On the right is St. Paul's, and it's beautiful. You have to go in there and enjoy the wonderful architecture. As I've already mentioned, this is the 5th version of St. Paul's. There have been 3 churches. This is the 2nd cathedral. The one previous to this one was burnt down by the Great Fire of London.